Hello everyone, my name is Julianne Dorney and I will be introducing our group's topic for our International Health Project. We chose to focus on HIV and AIDS. So what is AIDS and HIV? HIV stands for Human Immune Deficiency Virus, and AIDS stands for Acquired Immune Deficiency Syndrome. So a little bit of background on HIV and AIDS. It was originally a similar virus that was present in chimpanzees and was transferred to humans through hunting. It then mutated over many years to affect humans as it does now. So HIV, if left untreated, leads to AIDS. So preventing HIV will in turn lead to fewer cases of AIDS. Our bodies are unable to get rid of HIV like many other viruses. So once an infected person will have to deal with it for the rest of their lives. And currently there is no cure, but treatments can prolong an infected person's life and greatly improve their quality of life. Currently, some treatments can even help to prevent spreading the disease, but once again, there is no cure for the disease. So we looked into how we can start to prevent HIV and AIDS. And the disease isn't spread through common contact like shaking hands or drinking from the same cup like many common colds are, but it's usually transmitted through sexual activity or sharing needles, but can also be spread from mother to child through breast milk. So to get into a little bit about our focus on our project, we researched the highest death rates from HIV in the world, and the countries that popped up were Botswana, Lesotho, Swaziland, and South Africa. So as you can see, most of these countries are in Southern Africa, so we chose to focus on HIV and AIDS in Southern Sub-Saharan Africa. So we started to research, why does Southern Africa have such high HIV and AIDS rates? So there's no real agreement on why the disease is more prevalent in Southern Africa. Many experts have agreed on a few of these ideas. And as you can see, most of them are very just high-risk behavioral patterns that have been kind of accepted throughout the communities in Southern Africa. The biggest one being the traditional attitudes throughout many of the communities in Southern Africa toward having multiple sexual partners and premarital sexual activity. And then, of course, lack of money is another obvious challenge, and natural disasters result in economical problems like this and can drive many young women and girls into patterns of sex work. And then, of course, many of these countries are made up of tiny villages that are very spread far apart, making it difficult to communicate health information between all of them. So that was our topic on how to focus on HIV and AIDS in Southern Sub-Saharan Africa.
Hi, my name is Haley Eslick, and I'm going to be giving you a brief overview of our planned intervention today. So let me share my screen real quick. So we plan on creating voluntary classes that will be available to any member of the community who wishes to take them. And we want to teach members of the community to teach these classes themselves so that they can happen on a regular basis and they can continue long after we would be available to just give them the classes ourselves. We really want to enable the community to fix their problems themselves. So these classes are going to have three primary goals, which are to raise awareness, to prevent new cases, and to reduce the social stigmas associated with living with HIV or AIDS. So with raising awareness, we know that knowledge is the first step towards prevention. A lot of these people don't know how HIV is spread or the effects of it. So hopefully by teaching them how they might contract it, they would know when to be tested, what kind of activities are risky and things like that. Also in Sub-Saharan Africa, it is very common for men to have multiple sexual partners while women don't. And if there's any repercussions from that, any STDs or things, then usually the woman is held responsible in the relationship. So we're hoping that these classes will help men to understand that we are, both responsible for these kind of activities, and that them limiting their sexual partners is just as important as the women. And hopefully by raising awareness, we will help more people to be tested, hopefully through both understanding when they should be tested, what kind of activities they might have been doing that would cause them to maybe have acquired it, so they should be tested, as well as teaching people what resources they have available in the area, so that they'll know where they can be tested and what kind of resources they would have if they happened to be positive for HIV. Sub-Saharan Africa is the most affected area in the world when it comes to HIV. So hopefully through these classes we can raise awareness that other countries have lower rates and there are things that we can do to help lower the infection rate of HIV, and that change is possible. And then after we have taught the current generation, we are hoping that we would be able to convince them to change their ideas about sexual education so that their children will understand how HIV is spread and be able to protect themselves as well. But with the current generation, we still want to prevent new cases. So we definitely want to teach them how it is contracted so they could avoid those kind of activities. And that is both through the sexual transmission of the disease and mother-to-child transmission. So people can be prepared for both, know how to prevent both and what they should do. And then we want to just disseminate all the information we can, basically, on how to use condoms and how important that is, the importance of clean needles, and hopefully, depending on funding, we would be able to give out some condoms to the people who are in the class and clean needles to hospitals and things like that in the community. We want to be able to create an open discussion with sexual partners so that if you are HIV positive, you know how to communicate to sexual partners that you are positive and what kind of things they could do to help lower their risk of transmission. And there's also prescription drugs available that we want to make sure that people know about, the drugs that can help prevent the spread of the disease, and also drugs that would help them with their quality of life while they're living with it. And then there's that idea again of limiting sexual partners and how important that can be in slowing the spread of HIV. And then we also are hoping to reduce the social stigma associated with living with HIV or AIDS. And that is the discrimination, prejudice, negative attitudes, or abuse towards these people. The WHO has actually cited that this is the #1 reason that people don't get tested. Generally, people think that the only way to get HIV is if you're living a promiscuous life, or if you're gay, or if you are a drug user. So people aren't going to want to go in and get tested because they feel like they're going to be judged for that, especially if they have a positive test and they have to tell anybody else about it. They don't want everybody to think that they have been living their life in a way that they either haven't been or shouldn't have been. And there's actually an episode of ER many years ago that was hoping to kind of combat this idea, because it actually showed a wife who was faithful and she was a doctor and she lived a great life, and she had a husband who cheated on her and he contracted AIDS and gave it to her. So it was trying to explain this idea that there's just so many ways that you can get AIDS, and it's not always the person's fault. And even if it is, that really shouldn't change the way that we treat them. And we're also hoping that by bringing up awareness, we can reduce this fear of people not even wanting to be around someone who has AIDS. If they know that they can't get it just by being in the same room, breathing the same air as them, then we can reduce that fear that they shouldn't be in proximity with people with AIDS, and that would hopefully improve their quality of life if they are living with HIV or AIDS. And then post-exposure prophylaxis is just one of the examples of drugs that you can take that helps to prevent the spread of HIV to partners. So there's also stigma that people who have HIV or AIDS should be alone for their whole life. They should never be in relationships because they don't want to spread HIV or AIDS. But there are medications that can help prevent that, or the use of condoms. So these people really don't need to be alone for their whole lives, because the possibility of transmission is very low if they're educated and being careful about it. There's also medication available for pregnant and breastfeeding women that can help prevent the spread of the disease from the woman to the child. Especially in very poor countries, the benefits of breastfeeding, mostly because they don't have good access to other food, is actually more important than the risk of giving HIV to the child. So doctors will actually encourage the women to take the medication and breastfeed rather than to just not breastfeed at all, because it's so important to get the children those nutrients. And again, there's just the idea that there's so many ways it can be acquired, and we just want to improve the lives of the people who are living with HIV. And Megan is going to tell you about that next.
Hello, my name is Megan Dibble, and I will be discussing why the intervention we have chosen will solve the problem. So obviously the intervention is not going to completely solve the problem, but it can definitely help it. As you know, the intervention that we want to implement is to offer educational classes to the members of the community. These educational classes, as Haley explained, is to teach and to give knowledge to these people that they may know how to solve their own issues. She also explained that these classes will have three primary goals. The goals are to raise awareness, prevent new cases, and reduce social stigmas among the community. And I just want to take a moment to discuss the importance of education. A person, if they do not understand anything about HIV and AIDS, they are not going to know how it is transmitted, and so they'll end up with the disease not knowing how they got it. It is so important that we teach these people how the disease is transmitted and what can be done to prevent it. And so that is why these classes are so important, because if we raise the awareness, then we can prevent future cases of HIV and AIDS, which will in turn lower the prevalence of the disease in the specific community. And it will also reduce social stigmas. There are a lot of fears associated with this illness because there isn't a lot of understanding and knowledge regarding the disease. So if we can help reduce these social stigmas by giving them knowledge, then overall the community will be able to unite together and fight the disease together. And that will only be done by disseminating certain education and information regarding HIV and AIDS. And so that is why we have chosen this intervention, is to spread that education, spread that knowledge, so that people can learn for themselves and be able to know what they can do specifically in order to prevent the disease, avoid situations that put them at risk for contracting the disease, and how they can also help others. Because when you gain knowledge, then we will want to teach others, correct? We want to share that knowledge. And so we want to get that information out there so that it can be spread and so that ultimately it will lower the prevalence of it.
Hello everyone. So my name is Farai. I'm going to be presenting how we are going to implement our project, our international project on HIV and AIDS in the sub-Saharan Africa region. And this is how we're going to be going about it. Let me see if I can find my screen. Okay. So the objective is to raise awareness, to prevent new cases, new infections, and also be able to eliminate the stigma that is around HIV and AIDS. So in the raising awareness, what we'll be trying to do is to teach people what HIV is, teach people what AIDS is, and also teach them how it is spread and how they can be able to avoid and prevent it. And on the preventing of new cases, basically what we are doing is we're teaching them how it can be prevented. That we're telling them that it can be prevented and how it can be prevented. That they are aware of all these prevention methods that are available to them. That they may be able to use them to prevent new infections. And also on the reducing of the stigma, what we need to do is to speak openly about it. Don't be afraid to speak about HIV and AIDS and how it affects you if it affects you, and also be able to speak openly about sex and be able to understand how sex can play a part in the spread of, or how it plays a part in the spread of HIV, and how risky behavior can also be avoided. It can also be able to people can abstain from these risky behaviors that will cause the spread of HIV and AIDS. And the project methodology that we're going to be employing is we are going to be recruiting volunteer educators from within the different communities. So what we would do is go into the villages and then find people who are volunteers, who speak the language, people who understand the culture, that are able to teach others about this HIV and AIDS and how it can be prevented. And also what we need to do is also to have an equal number of male and female volunteers, because research has shown that most of the times you find more female volunteers than male volunteers, because women are just more involved in the whole fight against AIDS than men are. So we want to get more men also involved in the process, so they can be able to speak to other men also about how they can prevent it, because it's difficult when you have only female trainers or educators teaching the male a male audience about how to prevent AIDS. So when it comes from the male, also it also helps. The other thing is also the age, different age groups. So we need young volunteers and old volunteers also to be able to take part in the process. And what we need also is to need to organize and source some bicycles for the volunteers for them to get around the villages. So we need to get a donor or a sponsor to provide those bicycles for them to get around. And also we need volunteer actors, maybe well-known actors from the within the villages, to be able to do a play that we can be able to use in the training of in the trainings. As the volunteers go around, they go and do the act or the skit that they have to teach people about HIV and AIDS in the play. And then the first thing that we'll do now is to train the volunteers in a workshop that's going to take maybe a week. So what we'll be training them on is the knowledge of the virus and how it is spread. So we need an extensive, giving them extensive information on how HIV is spread and what it is all about. And then we're teaching them also about the prevention methods, how to prevent it, all the available prevention methods. And then we'll also be teaching them how to be able to speak out about this problem that we are facing. And then we will train them on conducting tests, these home-based tests, so they can be able to go around. As they go around, they can also be able to conduct the test. And as they do the test, they also need to learn counseling, so they can be able to counsel those who are maybe positive or those who are affected in any way by this HIV and AIDS. So they'll need to be trained on counseling as well. And then they need to train people on how to living with HIV, with the virus, encouraging people or letting them know that you can still live a happy life even if you live with the virus. So we're trying to teach the trainers that they know exactly how to be able to live a healthy life even under with the virus. So the training sessions in the villages, we would like also to involve the community leaders because of their influence on their community members. So if they take part, they'll be able to influence more people to take part in the processes. We also would like to involve religious leaders also because of their influence in the communities. The other thing that we'd like to do is to involve the schools. Schools are the best place to spread information. If you want the parents to come to a meeting, then you can tell the children that they must take the message to their parents, that they must come to a meeting. So we would like to involve all those three parties. So the most important thing is about spreading the word, that everyone knows about what we are doing. So when we begin the process now, we need to give flyers and pamphlets to tell people that, okay, on this date we are going to be having a recruiting volunteers to take part in the training of people on HIV and AIDS. So these pamphlets will go around to the churches, to the schools, around the community also. And also we'll be able to, then the next thing we'll be holding the workshops where we train now the volunteers or at a central venue, train them on how they are going to go about doing the training in the community. And then we also hold the testing and the counseling sessions at the same time. So now that after the training, those that are willing and able, they can be able to take part in the testing and the counseling sessions right there and then. So when the volunteers go out, this is how they're going to go do the lesson. There will be a welcome note by the community leader who is available on the day, and then they will introduce the project, they will introduce the program, and then they will also introduce the trainer. Once the trainer is being introduced, then they will also do a brief introduction of themselves, and also introducing the topic of the day. And then before they go into the lesson and the training, we now need to have a skit that we're going to be using the actors to do a short play on HIV and AIDS. And then after they play, then we do the training on how we can prevent the spread of HIV, what it is, and also how we can go to eliminate the stigma that is surrounding this HIV and AIDS. And then there will be a question and answer section where the trainers are leading a discussion or they're answering questions that the members of the community might be having about HIV and AIDS. And then after that, we will do the testing and counseling, where those who are willing and able to do the test right there and then can do the testing, and also can be able to receive counseling. And then from then on, the testing will continue. The testing and counseling will continue by appointment. So the community will have the numbers and the contacts of those volunteer trainers, so they can phone them and contact them and tell them, I want to do test and I want to do a counseling session. And then when they go there on their bicycles, they can be able to do a test and also be able to counsel the members of the community in their own homes. So they'll also be able to set specific days that they'll be able to be in a specific village to be able to do the test and do the counseling. So the members of the community will know that, okay, on this day, the trainers and are coming to be doing the testing and the counseling. So they can be able to prepare for themselves, be able to set time aside to be able to take part in the process. And then also try to, the role of the volunteers also is to try and identify homes that are affected, and then be able to work with them, to help them to be able to live with the virus within their homes. And measuring success, our success will be measured by the number of people that have taken part in the trainings, in the community trainings, and also by the number of new infections that we have been reported in the period, and also we'll be checking on how people are talking about it openly about HIV, and how they are talking more without having to worry about it, without this taboo that has been around HIV and AIDS. We'll also be able to see the number of people that are taking part in the process. That will also be able to be a sign of or a measure of success in our project. So that is in a nutshell how we're going to be running the project. So we're hoping to start maybe in the villages, when we identify villages that are affected, mostly in countries like Botswana, Lesotho, and Swaziland, and Zimbabwe, and then be able to identify those villages and go in there and run our project. And that's how we're going to be doing it. Thank you.